And in order, as the saying goes, in order for someone to make money, someone has to lose money, right? And of course, it's a weird way to think about it, but that's the nature of business, right? Again, let me cut this down over here. So yeah, so using that as a somewhat of a template, and how every person who goes into business, right? Of course, there's you guys are businessmen in your own right, businesswomen, right? So Shanique, of course, entrepreneurs, whatever. We understand that you have to be very, again, intent driven, right? Again, you have a product, you have a service, you have an audience, right? You have a form, whatever that may be, a pipeline or of customers, whomever. It's your goal to serve them best way you can, right? Meet their demands and try to exceed that, right? Because you want them to become, that kind of, liaison to other people, right? As they say, the best form of marketing is what? Word of mouth, right? Of course, not rocket science, right? You want people to feel excited about what you offer to the degree they'll go out and kind of share that with other people, right? So and you say, okay, well, where are we going with all that, right? Well, it speaks to, I think, for a lot of ways why we're here, because we want to have that level of growth beyond of the norm, right? Beyond just, okay, well, this is kind of like business as usual, right? We want to stick to the lane of I guess turning out production by way of somebody else's vision, their goal, their dream, right? By value of a job and job only. Well, that's not the case, of course. I mean, of course, I know I speak to the choir when I say that or speak to that, but that's just a part of how we're being conditioned, meaning what we're trying to do here, to break away from those kind of norms, right? At least where we can have alternative measures to be able to accrue income, right? So that's that's the extent of I think beyond we want to be able to make money too, but just having that freedom, right? So we always had that kind of vision where, well, why are you really here? Of course, I want to make money, but I want to have some kind of form of financial freedom, right? Which goes without saying, right? It just comes, right off the top of you guys' head, right? Like, yeah, I want to have freedom, right? And that's good, right? Because again, who wants to be stuck on someone's hamster wheel for eternity? It seemed like with a lot of these scenarios in play where you hear people who've been at a corporation or a job for 30 plus years, 20 plus 30 years. Some barely have stock option, value, 401k, whatever. They just have time in the game, right? And then raises that, they got, somewhere along that, that tenure of being with a company. In this day and age, this modern age where we know information is power again and easy to be monetized, is like no one, I think, that has a futuristic perspective of where they feel like this, the world is going, or the economy can now rest on, let me give a company 20, 30 plus years alone, right? And there's no really, equal or at least somewhat, equitable return on that time given, right? But beyond just, okay, they're going to pay me a certain amount, whatever, I have the ability to grow, move up the chain per se, get raises, however, and that'll be enough. Because again, why would that not be sufficient? All right. And if I was to ask you guys here this evening, of course, why would that not be sufficient alone, right? Not that it can't be, but from you guys' perspective, why would that not be enough? Just on a clock alone reality, no other multiple streams of income.
Because just over broke.
Right. Classic, right? The classic, right? Just over broke. Right.
And this one, and this economy is not, it's not
right. Yeah. And yeah, I mean that's kind of the extent of we understand now that there's a lot of different things that can easily trip you up, right? Trip somebody up, right?
In this economy.
Right.
So, money. So.
Right. Totally agree. Right. Totally agree. Sean, you had your mic. You was about to say something as well, or you just had open?
Yeah, the economy, the current state of the economy with the inflation is eating away at people's savings, and whatever their deemed income is, it's been cut by a percentage based off of the higher gas prices, food costs, and other stuff. So like, yeah, you got to have something to supplement that, or or you're gonna have to cut something out. So there's an imbalance somewhere, and it's gonna have to be filled some way.
Great point. All right. And exactly what we're speaking to today, right? What's going on overseas? What's going on over Rams in the back? We see you guys over there on the tube side. We got a late session going on here. But that's 100% right. And both you guys are right and exact. Because again, we're talking about, if you look at, over time, the cost of living obviously is increasing the same way that you would think, how one would think their raises, their wages should increase, right? And perpetuity to that of, be it the leveling of governmental policies, whether it helps or hurts you, right? Be it taxes go up, taxes go down, whatever. But one thing it seems to be constant is, corporations find a way to, to kind of eke a little extra out of you every year, right? And raising their value, right? Because it's on that, well, we need to have a way where we can expand our margin, right? Because without that, we necessarily don't have any kind of consistent growth, if you will, right? And they'll say, well, okay, well, depending on the open market, be it commodities or be it whatever, it fluctuates. So we have to have that flexibility to kind of charge more when necessary and pull back, when it's just really, really gravy. But then we always ask ourselves, when have corporations really been, on a moral level like that, where they say, you know what, we're going to do this for the greater good of everybody. We're just going to start lowering price because, commodities are being mined more thoroughly and more faster, more proficient. So it's less cost value. Crops are being grown at a way where, from farm to table, it doesn't necessarily come with a whole lot of hiccups. So that, liability cost structure has been kind of reduced. Just some of the basic financial foundations, right? Farming, tech, whatever. But again, that's what we have to, reckon with, ourselves with when you convince yourself that, my whole, mentality, if you kind of have that perception, let's say even if you go to college, right, coming out of higher learning education, right, you get your master's or your bachelor's course, and you go into a workforce now that's going to be very, tumultuous to kind of navigate. Why? Because look what's happening around the world right now, right? A lot of industries are very, very tight in terms of how, they're going to accept certain, entry level people into their organization. Now, granted, if they already kind of trying to figure out how to streamline their business to get the best production out of less production, right? Right. If you use that kind of reality, then yeah, that leaves a lot of people coming out of, the school system kind of stuck, right? That leaves them kind of really having to play the role of dog eat dog, right? You got to be, it's like, you got to really bring it, right? You have to really bring it. So in saying all that, again, we know inflation, right? We always talk about, the elephant in the room. Of course, it's definitely inflation. It's that proverbial, thorn and productivity side and, supply side of things, or even how it also affects the demand value. Why? Because when you are kind of forced into a necessity spending, a necessity spending kind of way of looking at how you release money, right? Because it goes from, okay, I have discretionary, I have miscellaneous funds, I have money that's budgeted for, holiday is up, every other weekend, right? You have a holiday, right? And now you have to cut back on those things and start, making sure, your utilities are covered, your now, of course, gas bill is almost like a secondary form of rent, it feels like, right? For some people, right? It's like, man, this is crazy. You start fattening all the different things. Now, you realize now, okay, well, yeah, this is why, I cannot, put so much of my wealth, right? When I say your wealth, meaning your what? Your talents, right? Your individual uniqueness into just one particular what? Portfolio, right? We've been taught to diversify our portfolio, right? We've been taught to, look at these different assets, right? These different asset classes, these financial vehicles, as I call them, to help us kind of get a leg up, right? Into that financial world where we're not just dependent upon one sole provider, right? All right, who that song? Sole Provider or the Akon, I think, whatever. But yeah, that's the energy, right? That's the litmus test for us, is right. How can we find other ways to what? Again, survive void of one egg, one basket, right? all eggs, I should say, excuse me, one basket, right? We're trying to separate ourselves from that kind of, reality, right? So, when we think about our, our the canvas or the landscape that we have to navigate, that we have to kind of, make lemonade out of lemons, right? Well, we know we're dealing with a macroeconomic environmental, landscape that's really, depleted because of, again, we know that COVID was a major issue with that. Then outside of that, we were still slow to gain, the equity production value or the sweat equity aspect of production back up to some form of scale where it'll kind of help, all that liquidity that was obviously, forced into the system by way of these central bankers, it'll kind of get alleviated by the production, right? Because you got to have equal labor to that of what stimulus, right? To balance out, right? If not, then you have one side, pushing more than the other, that can cause the system to kind of overheat. In this case, it's inflation, right? We know that the excessive money printing that came by way of the Federal Reserve, I think is weird too, because over Chris, he just posted something just, I want to say, about minutes ago. What's going on? All right. What's going on, family? Who's that? Oh, Brother Divine. What's going on, Brother Divine? We also have sister, who's this? Arona. What's going on, Arona? Shout out to you as well. Peace, power, and profit to you as well today, right? And having this little late night discussion, right? As you see on the topic, New York Federal Reserve DSG, right? The DSGE model forecast value, right? This came out literally for the month of June. And this one particular report, which we're going to discuss here, is very intriguing. Why? Because, the Feds deviated off their policy or their mandate, right? So, of course, it's not even a secret at this point, right? What did the Feds just do, guys? What did the Feds just do going into the month? Well, having, came out of the month of May, and the data we got for us, commodity markets, the whole idea of a CPI, PPI, et cetera, et cetera. What did the Feds have to do in terms of them having the audible, the kind of script that they already had in mind? Now, you guys can speak to that a little bit. What did they have to do? I'm asking too. I guess I'm asking that.
It changed the whole dynamic, the whole story now. From maybe it's a recession or it's a possible recession to a recession now, full-blown recession now.
Okay, so they changed the narrative, right? Yeah. The narrative is now based upon, the likelihood of this persisting and us having to do more than the average would cause things to get a little bit more shaky, right? We're gonna apply more pressure to these vice grips on this plumbing behind behind the toilet, right? Old school stuff, and hopefully it don't break, right? We don't break a pipe, right? The little PVC pipe or whatever. And it seems all but certain that that stuff is very inevitable, right? So we went from inflation is not right? It won't be endemic. It's transitory. So maybe it's not so much transitory, but we think we still got tools enough to fight it. So it seems to be a little bit more systemic than necessary. So we can't use the word transitory, but we still think it won't pose a bigger problem later down the road, because we feel like the employment situation will kind of bail us out on that perspective, to it becoming, it's not transitory. Inflation is starting to be, kind of set in because the supply chain issue in itself was not able to work itself out, due to a lot of other nations not being able to kind of rally their troops, if you will, right? Their labor force to kind of help everybody's, globally, right? And to now it's just to the point where, given the fact that we have to kind of do emergency, I skip one lane. Given the fact that now the inflation is, is showing to be, not evading no time soon, at least within this year, and to be able to have, a rate interest value based upon a 2% base case, right? This is this 2% narrative that they got out there, right? We don't see that, as plausible, in essence, to be able to kind of rein in inflation in a quickly manner. So by way of that, we need to kind of raise interest rates, get off this quarter basis point near zero rate, and get them back up to the point where we can somewhat try to kill all this demand in equity markets, in the housing market, and also in the labor market, right? Which is again, right? These are all things that you would like to be firing on all cylinders, right? Which feeds into your what? Your growth apparatus as a what? As a nation, right? Your GDP. Make sense? Right? That's the gross domestic product, right? If you take away or ease back on the gas on those things, well, what happens to your GDP? Anybody, and that's just throwing it out there. What happens to your GDP when you have to kind of, slow those kind of other parameters from happening? What happens to your GDP? Anybody want to jump in there? Anybody?
It'll
It
shrink.
should shrink, right?
Say again?
Should it shrink?
Right, it shrinks it, right? It pretty much puts what they call what the little thing, Flex Seal. You put one of the Flex Seal rubber patches, right? You didn't Flex Seal your growth, right? Like that's not conducive of, again, we are getting back to some kind of form of what? Normalcy, right? Because everybody had this picture in their mind that at least by 2023, or let's say mid-cycle, fiscal calendar mid-cycle 2022 into 2023, we should start having some kind of form of normalcy coming back, right? I mean, having to come on the back end of the whole COVID scenario, right? 2024, we should be back to a place where, everybody, most on terms of the global marketplace, should be back to some kind of form of a semblance, right? Well, we know that's definitely not going to happen by no intents and purpose. Why? Because again, in that same, factorization of figuring like, everybody got to do their part. Well, we know one arm of that, which is, the government agency, that of the central banker scenario, they over, accommodated in their lane, and it messed it up for pretty much everyone else, right? For citizens, right? No matter where you are. Because it's weird too, because I heard the soundbite the other day. Well, actually it was today, I think partially yesterday. And y'all might have been following Biden a lot when he kind of speaks to the ideal of, inflation. The reason why it's persisting is because of who, right? Who does Joe Biden blame for inflation? And then you guys would say,
stick it to Putin.
Sticking it to Putin, bro. Right?
Sticking it to Putin, bro.
Sticking it to Putin, bro. Look, everything falls back on Putin, right? That's the scapegoat. But like no one at this stage in the game believes that. And why is that? And I'm asking guys, why does no one believe it's Putin's fault? Well, I should say those who are, very intuitive people who are smart, who know how to do proper research methodology and know how to connect the dots. Why do they not fall for the Putin fault theory? That's why I got to call it a theory. I'm not even calling it a thesis, theory. But why do they not fall for it?
The inflation began long before that so-called invasion or special operation they got going on over there. So yeah, it started long before that.
Right. Again, we got these little, different little memes that we put up, different little screenshots, and we're showing gas prices sitting at, $3 and change, $3.5, $4 before the what? The war, basically with Russia kicked off. I think as the last reading, I think they said the whole issue with Russia, Ukraine, it has added at least about $1, I think it was like $1.10, $1.20 in extra value in gas since then. And then you can't even take the full extent of that and say that's that whole $1.10, $1.20, whatever it is also in relation to what? The Putin scenario too, right? Because you still got to take in consideration that, again, China had its issues, right? They still trying to get up to speed. And I also found out a very interesting fun fact, if we want to call it that. But also China is the world's biggest petroleum. They have the world's biggest petroleum refinery, I guess facility value on the planet. Right? You would think like with all these oil barons or these fossil fuel people, they will be well equipped to be able to have large or mass scales of refinery, to be able to turn that sludge into again, be it if it's just not straight natty gas value or liquid gas or just petroleum basic gas, right? RBOB value up, excuse me, right? But that's not the case in America, right? We have we're kind of operating from a deficit when it comes to our refinery process here. So, in saying that, if they were successful in pumping more barrels of oil, we still wouldn't be able to refine it fast enough to kind of equate to bringing the prices down at the pump. right? You see what I'm saying? Like we stuck either way you look at it, right? So again, with all the the finger pointing that we've been watching and seeing happen, it just makes us feel like, okay, these people really think we're that naive. They really think y'all that kind of slow, right? Right? Like we're that slow, right? Think about it, right? They literally go ahead, go to my say something.
Oh, I was just gonna say the fact that a lot of the congressmen know that Joe Biden is full of crap because they called it out today and yesterday
Doing
at
this, Senate hearings
during
and House
and
hearings.
even Jerome Powell was like, we had inflation before Putin even went to Ukraine, so Joe Biden lied, yeah. So everybody know he's lying, man.
He blew the whistle, right? on his homie, right? Right? He blew the whistle on his own homie, right? Go figure, right? But again, at some point he realizes that. Why? Because the way it's setting up, right? I know it's one of these most kind of unorthodox value or levels of training that we're gonna do tonight, because it's gonna be direct, but it's gonna be very open mic value, because I think right now, again, we got to be able to move in unison to whatever the data provides us in the moment, right? Because that's what we do. We're kind of in the moment, right? In a lot of ways, right? Even though we plan for what the next 3 months may look like, 6 months, whatever, into an annual value, but we also have to stay current, in our current events. Why? Because those things moves market, right? We're not just talking about an economic calendar that says, okay, we got PCE, we got this coming out, investor sentiment. Matter of fact, we got 2 nice ones tomorrow too, but still, and then next week's gonna be really nice ones too, right? But we got all the different things that we have to try to keep up with, right? Because our forward forecast or forward outlook has to mirror that of what we see, how well we're shaping up, right? Are we still somewhat in the slumber? Are we coming out of it, or we're spinning our wheels? Where are we, right? Because if you listen to to the government arm side of this, they're always going to paint a rosy picture, right? Even when we know it's grim reaper out there just slaughtering industry, everything else, but they still going to paint a very sanguine picture that everything is well, right? But that's not the case. So we have to have moments again where we can come together, speak about it, so we can obviously plan better, especially from an investment cycle, right? Because at some point we know when the market goes through this kind of pendulum swing, right? We kind of going back and forth on this big old pendulum swing, and we already coming back up far back to the other side now, where we was before. We're doing a whole lot of stimulus. Now we're going to the side where there's they cut the spigot off, everything's going to get tight. Inflation. I mean, again, anybody that goes off script at this point is only going to make things worse. And I'm speaking from a global perspective, right? Like China, can't afford to go back into lockdown like they just did with their latest little, zero COVID policies narrative. Why? Because it's going to be detrimental not just to their economy, right, but to everybody else's, right? Because everybody's so symbiotically connected, right? This whole synergy value, right? They got good synergies with us, and this, even though it's that kind of friend to foe reality, and ally and all in all the same breath, but we're starting to realize how all that stuff works, right? So with that being said, when you factor in the macroeconomics of this stuff into how we can apply that to a Tesla or Apple or Google or Facebook or Twitter or Datadog or Trade Desk or whoever, it gives us again a place to say, well, a lot of things are not where they need to be, or they're not at the level of the temperature where your money should be ready to ready to go inside that inside that furnace, right? It's just not ready, right? Because if not, if you throw money out there prematurely, it's gonna go right to the furnace, all right, but it's gonna get it's gonna become straight fuel for somebody on the other end who basically short against the market. It's not gonna really have value to provide proper energy for what it will be used for, right? Like coal, right? If you think about it that way, makes sense. So it's important to realize that timing is based upon, again, what does our macroeconomic picture look like as an investor, as a trader. Now, traders, of course, different, right? Because we're trading day-to-day volatility, and right now markets are volatile. And this is the time when the day trader, if he or she is on their game, this is when they make the bulk of their gain on an annual basis. If they base it up against a yearly regimen of trade in the market, this is when they make the bulk of their money, because a lot of things are volatile, right? A lot of sectors are all over the place. Now, this is something little different than the average, right? Because we came out of a pandemic, still in one, of course, but it's endemic. But, you know, that level of volatility has now kind of set in the marketplace, because now you add on what? Gasoline of inflation, gasoline of, you know, supply chain issues, gasoline of, you know, bad policy, gasoline of slow growth, gasoline of, you know, other asset classes, tripping up other asset classes, gasoline of panicking people, right? I mean, it's like an endless list, right? It's like, man, this stuff ain't gonna never seem to get right. And saying that again, saying all those different things, we say, you know what? We like to play the role of being at 30,000 feet and looking down. That gives us perspective. It makes us slow our roll enough to say, well, let me analyze this from a bigger, you know, from a bigger lens, right? Because if I stay worrying from one moment to the next and not really kind of connecting the dots in terms of what that, you know, what those data points may equate on a bigger picture, then I'm really backwards hustling, right? And I'm speaking to the investor side of us now, right? This is that beyond 3-month hold, 6-month hold potential, right? Yearly plus hold on a particular asset. Or when we say, well, you know, I think the stock is cheap enough now, let's go to work, right? Let's get the dollar cost averaging in right now, right? DCA, whatever. You know, that comes from a place where you say, I think things are starting to balance out. But then you say, but wait, right? But wait, there's more, right? There's more to it than just, you know, hanging it on that, you know, aspect of it alone. Because again, the people who created this condition, or I should say, who made it worse than it should be, right? They're up against what? You know, the chopping block right now. They're up against the clock. So whatever they put out in terms of using the same tools to help them get us into this mess, whatever the tools that they have left to get us out of this mess, right? Everybody needs to be following, to a degree, exactly what they're going to do, right? Because every move that they make, as they say, you know, let your next move be your best move, right? This is exactly what's happening right now with the Federal Reserve. Right? So much so that, again, they kind of slightly, again, it's for those who initiated, because y'all know we weird over here, right? We're weird, right? We do stuff that most people don't do when it comes to, you know, traditional stock market training, right? We're not just pouring, you know, countless hours in the technicals, fundamentals, right? Investor sentiment, whatever, that kind of just baked into it. And that's just it, right? We pack up and we go home, right? That's just not us, right? I don't know if that's a gift and a curse, but I'll leave it up to y'all to judge, because I wouldn't feel comfortable just coming from those lanes alone and not being able to kind of really bring a totality to this overall industry of craft, right? And it helps us become more, again, astute to how to navigate on a global level in terms of currencies. If you're on the forex side of things, if you commodity value, commodity trading, and understand what that looks like, you know, from a raw goods perspective into a manufacturing side of things, and how you can benefit any value of that. I mean, own up the food chain, essentially, right? So let's go here real quick. So speaking to that same energy real quick, right? Having kind of laid out a little bit of where I'm kind of going, or hinting to a degree, right? Beyond that, when we say, you know, looking at the marketplace and acting as if, you know, we're getting back to some kind of form of normalcy too. But why? Because we realize these people, you know, got so comfortable, you know, and, you know, over the years, when you think about the last financial crisis that we had back in 2008, right? Well, that's the, you know, most current one. We can kind of mirror up against the COVID pandemic scenario. You know, we've been on this kind of what? Wild beast savage kind of what? You know, epic, you know, market run, right? Like as soon as I click to the monthly chart, I mean, the thing just instantly run through the top of my screen here. But if you look at this here, guys, right? I mean, just really quick, right? This is the subprime lending crash, right? This is everything before that, right? Just kind of, you know, kind of clean a little bit, you know, a little nice, little, you know, peak to trough. Of course, you know, we had some issues in the 2000s. We had some, you know, back in the 90s and some in the 80s, whatever. And then we had this kind of, you know, new way of federal, you know, I should say, the Federal Reserve gained more power the more seemingly financial crises that began to arise in a way where we kind of overshot a lot of our, our capabilities. They began to start punting a lot of that work off to the Federal Reserve, right? They got tasked to do more, or given the reign that they can do more when they probably shouldn't have. right? That I guess that's debatable. And they gained so much more power, like literally overnight, per every scenario of a financial crisis that we had. Let's say going back to, into the 80s scenario, right? It just morphed into something very sinister, right? Beyond Greenspan, beyond what was a woman named, who was it before her? Him, excuse me. God, I forgot who was it before Greenspan. It's slipping me now. But of course, Greenspan, but starting with Greenspan, definitely into what Bernanke, into Yellen, and into what Powell, right? It's like that's a domino effect between them alone, where these people just were, just like wild beast savages in terms of, our, economic situation, right? They just went overboard, right? With, their policies, their free reign to kind of just, really, pour money into the value of appeasing Wall Street more so than in the Main Street. And it became like an endemic, rite of passage where you had to come in and do the bidding of what? Wall Street and Wall Street only. Why do we say that? Well, because again, if you think about the 2008 crash that we had with subprime, bad paper when it came to mortgages, that and third, felonious stuff, in came the Chris Dodd scenario with banking and all other stuff. I mean, along the way, whatever. The market from that point on just literally said, okay, we just got word that these people are not going to never let us fail, right? We had a few casualties, right? We had the Lehman Brothers and all that, AIG, all them, but those were a small drop in the bucket of those who skated, right? From, being liquidated, right? From becoming insolvent, right? So they had to have some kind of fall guys, right? But outside of that, the market shrugged that off and literally went from, if you say $50 here down here at this point, and we ran all the way up here to 480, right? And you're talking about less than what, 12, 13 years, right? Like literally, like 12 years, right? You had that kind of level of return. And if you just think about that, right? It's crazy. Like, and I'm saying, well, okay, where's the qualitative way of life where the average American was able to benefit from such a boom? Because the stock market seemed to have one, but then you look around Main Street, wealth gap, scenarios and the inequity value within that between, the 1%ers down to those who have not. Where was that, division of the profits, right? Literally, that's how you're looking at it, right? Where those profits went, where them profits went, right? Right? Yeah, about that, right? So again, we realize now that we're in a different marketplace where the Keynesian mindset or the Keynesian, economic school of law, where governments control most of the free markets in terms of their mandate values and keeping in their mind, they said, well, we're keeping volatility at bay, whatever. That has become the norm, and it's inorganic, right? Clearly, it's inorganic, right? Because it really benefits one side more than the other, right? And they haven't stopped, right? They got forced. It got so bad they got forced into stopping this money scheme, right? They had one more big go at it though, right? And that was what? COVID, right? That was the like, if we're gonna go hard, guys, this is our last time to go hard. And boy, did they, right? Did they, right? I mean, like, we never seen that level of liquidity ever. We never seen that much, run onto the Federal Reserve balance sheet, like literally overnight. Even when, it was a time when Ben Bernanke was just like really just, it's like he was just a wild child, just print money, print money, print money, print money. Barack Obama gave him the green light. He just went ballistic with it too, right? It was so much so that when he went before his congressional Senate hearings, like we're seeing with Jerome Powell now, it was almost comical to see him go, see him talk to these people. And they knew what he was doing, right? They know he was doing the bidding of Goldman Sachs. He was doing the bidding of, JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley and all these mega capitalist brokers and fund manager. They knew he was strictly doing the bidding for those guys. And yet no one really clamped down on it. Why? Because for a lot of ways, like we're saying today with Nancy Pelosi, a lot of those senators or congressmen or whomever, they're benefiting from the stock market going up too. It's like, dude, you got no chance of being able to, really, get ahead unless you become an asset owner or a business owner. Now, there's some ones where you can work your way through the system and get it. Granted, you can come up that way too, but we're talking about those things they're not the norm, right? They should be, but those are far from between. Those are exceptional people, right? Or they just they know somebody, right? The network system. Outside of that, you have to have asset ownership. because we realize now, given, the market being left to the devices of the Federal Reserve and these investment bankers and this, that, and the third, man, look, these people tasted greed that they never tasted ever before. You talking about from $50 to 480 in under what, literally 12 years. And we know industry changes over how many years? When does industry change over, guys? It's every what? How many years? Industry. When does industry change over? Anybody? When does industry change over? Every how many years? Right? Bro, Brandon said 10 years, right? 10 years, right? 10 years is typically the norm for industry trade. Now, again, it's been condensed, right? It's about 5 now, right? Given the Cathy Woods theory, right? Right? It's about 5. But that was a whole cycle, right? Of just, unlimited growth potential. You say, okay, well, where are you going with all this, brother? You kind of, you're baking a cake here. You add ingredients, you must be going somewhere with this. It's the understanding that if your macro picture or your macro outlook or your understanding of how all this stuff works as a layman does not, put you in a position where you know how to sift through all the, sift through all the weeds to get to where, to pay dirt, so to speak, then, you can't convince, people who realize that, again, in order for you to have a leg up in life, you have to have other means of streams of income at your disposal that you're going to be, sustained, be able to be sustained by that, right? And sometimes that's even with working, people in the household, right? We talking about one salary now, like forget about it, dang near, right? And that could be a person with an MBS, right? And it still probably wouldn't be enough in a lot of ways, right? Unless you just live like really, really below your means, right? And that's an option always. But again, you're talking about putting away stuff for a rainy day. You want to build, you want to level up, right? You want to leverage stuff. You don't want to just fly on the radar, right? But again, that's why, we have to be very comfortable and knowing how to be able to read through these kind of different factors, right? These macroeconomic, pictures or data points that are just like, man, if we knew this stuff, again, 10 years ago, how well y'all would have set up, coming out of the subprime lending crash. Like, again, we asked that question many times back in the past. Like, what was you doing, back in 2008, 2009, right? What was you doing in 2010? Now imagine, whatever, that, plethora of stocks or investments at that time were like the big dogs on the block. And you had that kind of knowledge back then, would you have plowed money into those assets then?
Yes.
Unequivocally, right? I already know everybody on here would have been raising their hand like, yep. All that money I was throwing and letting it rain, and I was doing some things, a little something strange for a little piece of change. I was doing a little bit of everything. Man, mad if I'd have plowed at least a third of that money into the market, right? Like, it's not even funny because looking at the numbers here in terms of the chart, as they say, the numbers don't lie, right? Numbers don't lie. Charts don't lie either, I guess, right? Even though we know they could be, we know the whole idea between that, right? But look at this here. You're talking about, again, exorbitant growth, right? You're talking, again, even at a point where we hit, stride in 2011, right? The market kind of gained back all those losses that it got out of, the subprime lending crash of 2007, 2008. We got back to a form of equilibrium around about, 100 basically. And literally from 2011 into 2020, basically 2022, right? We're talking what, 11 years, right? 10 years, whatever. The market gained over 400%. Over 400%, right? I mean, if you break that down in increments of what, per year, right? 10 years, that's like what, 40% on average? That's like 40% over 10 years. Somebody make that make sense. Like imagine you can get 40% on your money every year. And all you got to do is just kind of set it and forget it and say, well, I'm not going to revisit none of this stuff until what, 10 years from now. And that's not before you can start adding in the value, what, dollar cost averaging in, and principal, value investment beyond just initial investment. That is crazy, right? Because again, we understand now that this is how, the wealth effect, really gets, get mobilized, especially in America, how people who understand or know how this stuff works, this is why they rarely walk away from this, rarely they walk away from this. Rarely they say, I want to go back and get a job or some point you say, well, I made enough money at this point, but I still got a little bit out there on cruise control because they never just completely walk away, right? Let's say if in the pool something really crazy, right? Right. I just got to, get off the grid, all this stuff. But outside of that, relatively walk away. Right. It's such a money spigot that's like none other, right? Like you don't walk away from this. Okay, fast forward till today. Like, okay, brother, we get it. You really expounding on something. You must be really going with this. Fast forward till today. As the saying goes, once you know better, you do what? You do better, right? Well, that's the whole, that's our whole, thesis in one value, right? One slang saying or cliche saying, whatever. That's our entire thesis. Once we know better, we're supposed to do what? Do better. Once we're, privy to certain information and know how to, interpret it, that should be like, okay, yeah, okay. It's no need for me to even act naive or act, like I don't understand this and know how to, read this. I need not even play that game going forward. Why? Because I know it could be very costly to me, right? If I'm not able to kind of keep up with what, at the pace of innovation, government value, the value of, again, commerce, the whole value within that, it just serves no purpose to you at that point, right? To have such a skill set and you don't use it, right? And you don't use it. So Exhibit A. So when we talk about, where do we go from here, right? People been asking, I know y'all get this question, like, man, what you think the stock market gonna be doing the next, month from now, right? 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year, right? If you even discussing it with your spouse, right? Or you got whomever, right? Peers, whomever. Everybody wants to know, when is it going to be a good time to buy? Because they may see you out there, grinding. They may see you out there doing certain things. They want to know, right? A lot of that has to come with, where they trust they may trust your opinion. But then you would say, of course, I want you to be able to do this on your own too. We understand it, but yet still they want to get that overall forecast from you because you maybe can explain it better.
Right.
Y'all see where I'm going with that? Y'all with me here? Everybody with me here?
Mm-hmm. People stay asking about that, especially they definitely want to know about houses and real estate.
Because that's the next one on the block. I was getting it right. Speak to that.
Some people acting, delusional. It was like, oh man, housing prices ain't going down. I'm like, y'all must don't know how monetary policy works. You must don't understand, raising higher interest rates is gonna cool down the housing market. So, and then you got
this is a shock in our perspective. Now, mind you, I mean to cut you with them, but that's a shock in our perspective. Keep in mind, we were just literally at dang near zero interest rate, literally what about 7-8 months ago?
Yep.
And we now, we talking about at that point, federal prime rate was sitting at around maybe 3.5, somewhere around there.
Yep.
And literally overnight, we're up over 100%.
Just like that.
Somebody again, they say, don't panic, it's organic. No, that ain't organic, right? Panic, that ain't organic.
Ain't organic at all. I was trying to tell people, even the brother Dynas, I was trying to tell the brother Dynas Samir, I was like, bro, housing prices are gonna go down. There's no way they're gonna stay elevated like this with the Fed's raising interest rates. And then the mortgage rates are jumping up to 6%, as you just said. So, people are not going to be buying homes like that unless you really got money. Unless you really have money, you're not going to really be buying no home. Especially not with a 6% mortgage rate. That's crazy. Hey.
And juggers screaming now to get locked in. They struggling now to get locked. Like, bro, I need y'all not to waste no time on that lending side and get me locked.
Right.
If I don't get locked now, look, I can't depend on, Jerome Powell next month. He may do a whole point. Like that, a whole point. Right?
Exactly. And nobody looking at that. They not looking at, the Fed and what they're doing. I'm like, you don't know how monetary policy works. This is why you think, nothing is going on with the housing market. Well, the data is coming out day after day. Housing prices are going down. Buying is slowing. Building materials is going down. Lumber has been crashing for like the last 6 months. Like, I don't know how much information you need. And on top of that, inflation. So, pick your poison, man. Pick
But
your
you're on
poison.
point, 1,000% over. I mean, again, we couldn't have. I'm pretty sure everybody that's in attendance tonight is in agrees 100%, right? Anybody don't understand anything that the brother just said? Anybody, right? Anybody don't understand any of that? Anybody? I'm asking for a friend, right? You too, y'all understand, right? Y'all understand what's going on here, right? Right? Again, this is the extent. What's going on, Brian? Peace, power, pride, Brian. See you in the building. Shout out to you as well, right? This is the extent of exactly why each individual has to be what they have to. You have to be accountable for your what you know, or that you don't know that you should be trying to figure out, or at least learn it at a level where you can at least interpret the extent of the potency of the information when it comes to macroeconomics, when it comes to your livelihood, when it comes to your ability to have growth in life, not just sustainability, but growth. Where are those areas of interest that you need to pay attention to, right? And if we're hitting a cycle where growth is going to become stagnant or stagnated or whatever, how do you find a way to make a little extra money during those times? When you got to think about people potentially laying people out, right? All the different, headwinds that come along when you start having, runaway inflation that make it lead into either hyperinflation or stagflation, right? Which is the worst one. That's when it becomes endemic. And then from that, when the Federal Reserve has to do something large in life that they don't want to do to kind of shock and all and fix it, which always in more cases breaks things even worse, right? Now you got to go into potential recession and hope you don't fall into depression, right? So yeah, we're in that kind of energy right now, right out of the heat, right? It's right out of the frying pan, right into the actual fire itself. They just took the pan away, right? Right out of COVID, thinking we had this some kind of, everything's gonna be great, right into into the fire of inflation, right? And this one here could be, and I even hate to even make this comparison, but this one can be a lot more endemic than that of what we even think about falls a pesky behind virus, like the SARS-CoV-2 virus stuff. Why? Because we're talking about the ability to feed, clothe, and shelter yourself. Recessions, to keep a job, right? To be in a position where you can become employable, if that's the case, right? In a place where now it becomes like fine-tooth comb, right? We only looking for a select few, right? Again, what did Tesla just do literally the other day, right? Well, happened about a week or so ago, but came right out and said, we're going to chop at least 10% of our C-suite, people off the block. We talking about C-suite. If they start the C-suite first, right, and then go down the line, that's crazy in itself. Well, we kind of get it on that side because, the money for Tesla is made through the production. We get that. It ain't so much the people sitting up in, in these, nice fancy offices, just kind of, pushing buttons, trying to, be in control or whatever. So yeah, that's different, but you still get the point. Because even if you think about, what's going on with Facebook, Snapchat, all these companies have been coming out saying they can lay people off, right? The gig economy scenario, of course, you just a contract if you're in the gig economy. So that's why the whole idea with Uber laying people off, it just, it's that kind of admixture, probably a little C-suite and that of some drivers, maybe not a whole lot, because again, at that point, those are strictly producing, aspects of your business model, as opposed to people who just more service orientated, right? Like a Google, whatever, right? They don't really have a lot of products, but nonetheless, y'all guys get it. So now you say,
crazy.
Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, them layoffs crazy, man. And what's funny, just driving around Houston, man, it's dang near a now hiring sign everywhere, literally everywhere.
And as we were tracking this stuff, guys, y'all know we were tracking this stuff through the BLS. Every time they came out with a report, watching that CPI and all their job data stuff, non-farm periodic stuff, we start realizing, okay, yeah, the bulk of the jobs that were returning back to work, not creating new jobs, but returning back.
Yeah, they call it new jobs though.
They keep calling it a new job, which is the biggest lie ever, right? But again, people that's not initiated, they're gonna struggle with that, right? Y'all get it. A lot of those jobs that return back to work were just in the what space? Leisure and hospitality value. These were not the type of jobs that really can truly what move the needle, right?
Yep.
And these are jobs that are easily what acquired and easily what fired in the same breath. Like here today, going tomorrow.
High turnover.
Very high turnover ratio, right?
Yeah.
So I like you got to be able to see these things. And
it's spot on. It's spot on what you're saying, though, because like people can't afford to be financially illiterate in these times. So it's like it behooves people to take the time to do this research. But when you try to talk to folks, it's like, man, like they just, stuck on. It's like what Oba was saying. It's not their fault. They don't know, but not even taking the time to put forth some type of effort. Seeing all these things happening, I mean, they just taking comfort in what the media is telling them. It's bad, man. It's bad.
Yeah, you 100% right. It's like pulling teeth, right? It's like hey, I gotta pull teeth to get y'all to understand it. Because again, as the saying goes, right? Out of sight, out of mind. People don't realize the extent of it until it start really hitting them, right? Hitting their wallet, right? Now, everybody you get hit across the head at the pump, right? That's again your most fluent, your most fluent bill is your gas and energy bill. Think about that on average. If you are a gainfully, gainfully entrepreneur-minded person, your biggest cost value is going to be your fuel consumption because you got to be what? You got to stay mobile, right? Or you got to be in a position where at least if necessary, you have to have what? You'll have that accessibility to be readily available to make moves when necessary, right? On average, right? And some people often they kind of just still work from home. They comfortable, they cool, right? And that's one necessity I would say that came out of COVID that also helped a lot of people because again, at the point where a lot of those corporations was still like, hey, you still can work from the house, that's fine, right? That's saving some people right now. Truth be told, let's think about that. That's saving a lot of people right now. The fact that they're not being 100% forced to come back to the work environment. Imagine if they had a zero policy where no one could be at home and everybody go back to work right now with gas price like this, with inflation like this, coming straight out of COVID. When you exacerbate your savings, you in the credit side of things now, you ain't got, you use it for all your little something strange piece of chain kind of money. Imagine what that look like right now. You think people complaining now, boy? You think people blowing up their senators, local congressmen, this, that, and third, in the House? You think they complaining, boy? Imagine that environment, right? So yeah, it does matter. It does matter. And that's the deterrent in terms of, again, this bigger totality of how we're going to look at things going forward so we can kind of play within that kind of leveling, of where, our lives as individuals can be more fruitful, right? Where we can cut costs, where we can level, hit the gas pedal when necessary, et cetera, right? We're just trying to play it like everybody else, right? We're trying to figure out, where are the lanes that has the best, grease ax, what they call the axle grease that we can benefit from, right? We want less friction as possible, right? Less friction as possible, right? So again, that leads me to
what's the telltale sign when economy is really hurting and going into stagflation?
Good point. You asking, is that a question or you put it out there?
That's a question.
Oh, good question. Definitely, guys, jump in there, right? Pose it again, over Chris. I'm sorry.
I said, what's the telltale sign that economy is basically shrinking and going into stagflation? I mean, it starts with the Fortune 500 companies and all the top companies and whatnot.
Right. You start seeing them them good old fashioned off pink magenta color. Right. I hate to say it that way, but y'all know what I'm saying. Fuchsia, right? With the fuchsia, with Easter egg pink, right? Y'all get it. Pastel pink, I guess if you want to call it that. It's unfortunate, right? Of course, we get it. It's like, man, sad, but essentially, you start having shrinkage, you start having reduction, right? It's that cost analysis of where we can't have excess, right? Because in most cases, excess is great for protection, and having ample backup. But when those things become, threatened, you have to do a lot of condensing, right? Like condensed milk. But you gotta, cook that milk down. You cook that stuff down a little bit, right? Get it nice and syrupy and sweet, right? You're making caramel almost. That's essentially what's going on with the market right now. Like we ran, man. Look, boy, whew, when the get was good, it was good. Now that it's not, because they didn't kind of drug everybody through through a lot of bad policy, or they didn't play the role of being good managers at a point when they had like all the power in the world to really prove that they are a body of thinkers who are well equipped to be able to handle such a dynamic, catastrophic scenario like of a pandemic. Like everybody at that point, that was a moment they say, how the saying goes, you had one job. You had one job. Do your part. Everybody else can do theirs. We'll be all right. Them jokers had one job. What did they do with it? What did they do? Right? Boy, you talking about, did they blow it? Boy, you whew. It's like these people, if they had to go straight from where they at now to the general labor market and just be like no name people, average people at this point, strip away all that power and prestige that they got, and people know that they came from that level track record, them jokers probably wouldn't get hired. But I went to MIT, I went to Harvard, and like, bro, we just look. I just saw your resume, bro. I saw what you just did. We straight. We ain't want you at the 7-Eleven right now, J. Powell. I'm sorry about that, bro. We don't even want you on the grill at Mickey D's right now. We straight. You're like, bro, we straight. We're good. You done enough damage, right? We don't liability. Right, but that's the extent of that. So again, as we go, let's jump right into it, right? Because I don't be in much longer than necessary. I know I'm already late as it is, but thank y'all again for coming on late. I know it's late, guys. I appreciate you guys a million. Again, I get it too, and I don't take you guys, time, for granted. I realize that, and I will say this again: we're just trying to build, respective to our walk or our journey in this. I say walk, but we're really running, right? But our journey in this. In a way where we'll have, a broader outlook and a broader perspective going forward. Because again, what we do today, the same way we was doing back before COVID, but the same thing we was doing during COVID, all that work, and we were putting out that research we was putting out and studies and planning for even days like this. What we do now is going to be indicative of what our or I should say our benefit will look like 2 to 3 years from now. Why? Because we know another scenario is getting ready to set up, right? Now we know this thing of bull markets, bear markets, right? How that sometimes it can become, a 2 or 3 year chop fest and we go literally nowhere for 2 or 3 years. Are y'all ready for that if that's the case? Think about that. We're not going back to the market that we had before because that spot has already been blown up. If they try to force that kind of marketplace again, when everybody knows the end result of what happened previously, that's going to cause a lot of problems, right? You got to think about those things. You got to really take that deep dive psychologically and try to figure out, because again, they've all but signaled exactly what they was going to do. From the whole shock and awe moment when they did the whole bazooka, right? Helicopter money thing back, literally March. I remember like yesterday, I keep saying that. And they came out and made that big press release on CNBC that morning, and Jerome Powell dropped almost, literally not even almost, he dropped over a whole $1 trillion into the marketplace to get the market off the lows. We were sinking under 218, 220, 218, and all of a sudden they cut that print press on, and boy, that cannon was singing. $1 trillion went into the pre-market. It was pre-market at that, and the market just scoop. I was like, it was lights out from that point on. Right? I was like, this is crazy. I never had seen that like that. Me personally, that's what I just keep going back to it. Anyway, but that's it. So here we are today, right? So you guys may not be familiar with this website, meaning people may be watching on YouTube. Some of you guys may be, right? But I know most of the guys on the panel tonight definitely know that this is a site that we visit regularly. Why? Because we're checking a lot of the basic Fed policy, Fed funds, Fed values, right? Housing data, all kinds of different things that help us, go into some kind of form of an advantage or leverage on what's going on from a macro picture, right? And it's just one of many different tools, but it is one of the notable primary sources that most people need to be hanging out on average, right? If you are in the financial markets, right? So the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, right, put out a presser, right, as you see on the 17th here, where they have a independent, quant group of people who do the bidding for them off script, but on script. So they are the brain children behind the scene a little bit, tinkering with data, sourcing stuff, compiling it and saying, hey, here's this Bostic, here's this, Mester, here's this Evans, here's this, all the Fed chairs, here's this Jerome Powell, here's this Brandon, right? They feed them all this data, right? Or Jerome Powell say, hey, go get this information on this. And those guys go do that, right? This committee right here, this DSGE committee here, or if you want to call it committee, that's exactly what these people are, right? As you see, if we come back, can y'all see my screen here? Clearly here, is it showing?
Yeah.
Good. Go. All right. What's going on, family? Ross Shu in the building. Peace, power, profit to you, fam. Right. We see you in the building. Right. Shout out to you as well. So this piece of data right here is like bigger than what it really is. And it, again, as we said, we always got our fine-tooth comb out. We always, hanging in a certain circle, we're moving because our job is to be the what? Tip each other to what? Information that's going to help us have a better what? Vantage point to look at the marketplace, because we're thinking about the next big what? The next big economic wealth transfer. And it's going to happen. And I guarantee you guys, if nothing else, the majority of us are going to be ready for it. I repeat, the majority of us are going to be ready for it. And that's why I say what you do today is going to be beneficial to what your 1 year window, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year window going to look like. You guys are going to be prepared one way or the other. One way or the other, at least you're going to have the information, right? I'll say that much, right? So let's go there. So June 17, 2022, right? It's Liberty Street Economics Fair is like a forum that they have inside the Federal Reserve. It's kind of like their Wall Street Journal was inside the New York Federal Reserve. So, and probably even all of the Federal Reserve as a whole, right? This Liberty Street Economics report is very revealing in terms of the different things that it conveys, right? When they compile data and they put it out there. Like, how many people come to the New York Federal Reserve website to read news publications on their website? I'm asking for a friend. They're like, bro, I ain't know this probably even exists. I just go hang out on the other side of, like who would think about that, right? Because you go straight to the other stuff, right? Wall Street Journal, USA, excuse me, all that stuff like that, right? Barron's, Forbes, right? Fox, whatever. You won't come onto the New York Federal website to look for news publications, would you?
Data.
Think about that, right? So it's crazy. But let's jump right into it, right? I won't spend no more time necessary, right? So we're gonna start off and let you guys know, right? Again, this DSGE, this body of people that put together this information, and they put it in the form of a module, right? Again, and then they hand it out to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. They dispense it across all the different governors, this, that, the third, it's whatever. Again, it's insiders inside the house of the Fed. So it's called the dynamic stochastic or stochastic, depends how you want to say that. General equilibrium model, right? Dynamic stochastic general equilibrium model, right? This DSGE model, right? Because y'all heard Jerome Powell look at all during the pandemic, after the pandemic, we got various models, right? We had all these different models that we use, that we try to stay ahead of this, right? We data dependent, right? All that stuff, right? These lagging indicators, right? They got them behind this, behind inflation right now, right? Same thing got them in trouble now. But anyway, this one in particular is very revealing. Why? Because it seems like as much as it might be they work from a lot of lagging information, this one here actually came out and gave what they call forward guidance based upon a lot of the stuff that they were backwardation value they was pulling from, and then what they know to be somewhat very, serious, that they had to now start to kind of trying to play catch up. So they're trying to really, really get ahead of it. So much so that they actually reveal their hand. And that's what we know we're finna get ready to go into. Now, when you see them on TV, they say, well, we might be having a soft landing. Well, again, so Janet Yellen, she just literally came out of the closet, about a couple of weeks ago, right? Took her longer to come out the closet, right? In terms of her values, knowing that inflation was not transitory. Again, this is Secretary of Treasury, right? She will be fired. We get it. But now, nonetheless, they're playing catch up, but they're playing catch up to people who are initiated, who know how to come source information so they can better make better decision with their money, their fund managers, this, that, and the third, right? So people like that gonna come to this website, right? Bankers, fund managers, etc. People within that, people who have, who have reg license and things like that. They want to come get it straight from the horse's mouth in their perspective, right? So guess what? Let's go through this real quick, right? So it says within this particular article here, when we talk about them saying that, at first they said what, that recession was pretty much what it was what, that was the worst case scenario. Remember they kept saying that a little about a month ago? A recession would be like worst case. There's no way we see a recession. Y'all remember that? Like a lot of even the Fed governors, like Boston and all them guys, like we don't see a recession happening, right? We really feel like we can put land this plane softly, right? We don't see that as even I mean the inkling of what a recession, right? Reminds you of what was going on during COVID, right? We're not even thinking about what raising rates. Y'all remember that?
Yep.
That was literally
Bunch of malarkey.
Say again, over.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
Right. That was just literally last year. Mind y'all, guys. That was end of 2020, end of 2021. Remember all that? We're not even thinking about it. It was they were so cavalier about it and pumping their chest about it that they were just bragging that they weren't gonna never raise rates. Remember that? I mean, it was just like listen to these jabronis. Like, are they serious? Okay. Fast forward to literally today. Oh, bro, you talking about, oh my goodness. You talking about if there ever was a scenario of a governance, a body of governance, right? They're not even part of really government, they're private owned, but that where we say everything need to be like a fire sale and they need to go through there, fire everything in there, that would be the Federal Reserve right there. You talking about credibility? They got no credibility. They got no more credibility than a little John out there on the stroke right now, right? Look, it's that bad. So real quick, so it says what? This post presents an update of the economic forecast generated by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York's dynamic. So what I said of the New York Federal Reserve Bank. So there's not some independent. These are people that's in-house. So there's not even make no qualms about this. This ain't no third party. This is in-house, right? People, right? Y'all got that, right? We square there, right? Everybody with me here, right?
Yep.
Just to make sure we can solid here. So this ain't no third-party information, right? So it says what? Generated by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York's dynamic stochastic general equilibrium, DSGE model, right? We described very briefly our forecast, and it's changed since when? March 2022. So that's after the last one, right? And we can go back, y'all can go back and pull this up later. Matter of fact, let me get the link out there and put it on YouTube because I know I already sent this out to you guys, doing our pre-training briefing that we're going to speak to this, right? So we're going to go in on this real quick here, and then we're going to get on off this thing, right? Then we're going to talk about this again on one of our lives doing intraday, right? We're going to bring it back up. But just straight for the night, we're going to get right into it because I know you guys, got lives and stuff too. So it says what? As usual, right? We wish to remind our readers that the DSGE model forecast is not an official New York Fed forecast. Now you see how they did that real quick? It says this post presented and this post presents an update of the economic forecast generated by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York's dynamic stochastic DSGE model. But then in the same breath, they turned around and said what? It's not an official forecast of the New York Fed. Anyway, so in their mind, they're saying we're not making this, completely as a primary for that we will brief the public with, but this is what we're working with. Y'all got that? Somebody was breaking up. I think somebody was trying to say over Chris. I think that's you. You're breaking up, Rover. All right, but let me keep going. All right, I think it just may be a bad area for him. But again, going forward, it says what? It says we wish to remind our readers that the DSGE model forecast is not an official New York Fed forecast, right? Craziness, right? But we know it really is. Like, cut the crap. But only an input to the research staff's overall forecasting process. For more information about the model and variables discussed here, see our DSGE model Q&A, whatever, right? Y'all go click it on y'all, but we know what's going on here, right? I'm just gonna be the first one to tell you it's their outlook. It's their outlook, meaning the Federal Reserve outlook. All right, not just in New York, but all of the Fed governors for the most part. The New York Fed model forecast use data released through 2022, right? Q1 augmented for basically 2022 Q2, right? So this is kind of this first half, of the year, fiscal calendar, right? where they're making this kind of an assertion or assessment or what we should look like going into the back nine of the fiscal calendar, right? And possibly into 2023 and beyond. And so with the median forecast for real GDP growth and core PCE inflation, mind y'all, y'all know we got PCE coming out next week, right? That's going to be a big one too, right? And we got GDP coming out next week. So next week going to be very crazy, right? Those two right there, make sure y'all reference that next week. It's going down. So for real GDP growth and core PCE inflation from the May release of the Philadelphia Fed Survey of Professional Forecasts, SPF, right? As well as the yields on the 10-year treasury securities, right? And BA corporation bonds, right? That's the different distinction of bonds, basically, right? These high treasuries, but basically. Q2 averages up to May 27th, right? In addition, for 2021 Q4 and each subsequent quarter, right? The expected federal funds rate between 1 and 6 quarters into the future, right, is restricted to equal the corresponding median point forecast from the latest available survey of primary dealers, right, SPD, in that quarter, right? So dealers, auctioneers, the whole nine when it comes to the bond market, essentially speaking to that, how that, relates back to the PCE, basically personal consumption expenditure, and that of our GDP. There we go, that GDP. So we talked about earlier when I was kind of laying the groundwork, right? If there's less production, there's no production. How can you have a sustainable GDP? Where's your economic growth going to come from, right? Where are you making money as a nation? If you ain't making money organically, where's it coming from? You either print it or you're not, right? Either she pregnant or she not, right? Y'all get it, right? So this is important. So the model's outlook is considerably more pessimistic than it was in March. That little part right there. See right there? The model's outlook is considerably more pessimistic than it was in March. What did we have in March? The beginning of, we knew it was before that, but they really had to begin to accept that inflation was going to be everything except transitory, right? It was going to be runaway inflation at that point, right? And so technically, as soon as April came around, they tried to say, when we had that big spike up in March, and then April, we kind of cooled down just a little bit because the market kind of hit peak. A lot of them commodities and pulled back and then went higher, right? They got all, excited thinking it was going inflation was peaking. Boy, that was a whole lot of fun watching them scramble with that. But anyway, it says it projects inflation to remain elevated in 2022 at 3.8%, up a full percentage point relative to March, and to decline only gradually towards 2% thereafter, 2.5 to 2.1% into 2023 and 2024. Now y'all see this here. Now this 3.8 is modeled based upon everything that they use, because y'all know the Feds typically like to use the PCE as their model or data set to determine the extent of what inflation really looks like. Notice that they rarely speak to this CPI and PPI. They use the PCE. Know why? Because the PCE is very skewed. It's skewed towards making the Federal Reserve look good because they strip out a lot of very important factors in that PCE model to make it seem as if things are not as worse as they are, because they feel like by the time they get, through doing certain levels of policies, the level of production, whatever they may be, may level out some of their indiscriminate things that they leave out. Right? This is the game they play. They literally playing like the worst chess of all times. Like these would be like the worst chess players if there ever was, scenario, right? So it's interesting, but we'll just kind of play along here. Now they talking about 3.8%. Now y'all know what I know. Like, okay, good luck, right? It's a joke, and hence that's what they're already talking about. Raising the future fund rates up to around about near 4 or 5%. As if we get inflation back down to 4 or 5%, and that be the norm. They feel like we, at that point, okay, we're back to a point of equilibrium. Like, are you kidding me? Like, it's that bad, guys. But anyway, I don't want to spend too much time because I know how I am. But we're going to come back and revisit this again, my point. Again, it's already late, I get it. So it says this disinflation path is accompanied by a not so that right there. That sentence right there. What that say right there, guys? Anybody. So everybody scream. What that say right there, guys? I'm just asking for a friend, guys. What that little
Not
block
so
right
soft landing.
Say it again, Ogle.
Not so soft landing.
Reverse they talk.
Let me put some respect on that thing name right there. Woo, Gina. a not so what? Not so soft landing. What have the Feds been telling y'all over the past 2.5, 3 months? At least 2 months.
You want to ease into it.
Yeah, they talked about a soft landing. They've been speaking with that fork tongue.
The same way they were wrong on transitory, the same way they've been wrong on what? A soft what?
Soft landing.
How you land this kind of plane that's on fire with no wheels, one wing, no gas, no windshield in the front, no trained pilot, and you talking about landing at what? A soft landing. I'm just, again,
That
show
thing
me.
gonna crash.
I'm just saying, when have I can't recall the last time I ever seen a plane that was crashing and land softly. The last one we got that's close to that, probably that one that landed in the Hudson up there in New York, right? Where you at, Overridge, right? Where my New York family, right? Where dude landed that plane in the Hudson, that about the closest thing you got to a soft landing of a plane that would crash.
Yes,
That's
sir.
it. Think about it. I can't be the only one thinking like this, right? Right?
Scully.
Taking over?
Scully.
Yeah, Scully. Yep, he became somewhat of a little hero. Then they put he had a little controversy with his little life. And then these people crazy. It's like boy, they won't give Joker no kind of credit. But think about this: they're telling the general public that they finna what? Have a soft landing. Don't worry about your 401ks. Don't worry about your what employment situation. Don't worry about higher gas prices, higher food costs. Look, guys, by the time we finish engineering what we're gonna engineer, we're gonna land this plane softly, as if you didn't even have a little turbulence. Bruh. Bruh.
How do you land 16 to 17% inflation?
And $9 trillion on the Fed balance sheet that came $4 billion, dang, the 4-5 billion came in less than what 4+ years. Someone explain that to me. Do they really think we boo-boo the food? As they sit back in the hood, they must think we boo-boo the food, bro. What kind of what? To the uninitiated, guess what? They'll believe this foolishness. Or they'll believe in all that. It's transitory. It's what? They're gonna land this soft landing. They just ate that stuff up, hook, line, and sinker.
It's Putin, bro.
Sticking it to Putin. It's Putin's fault. Like, see, this is why we're different. Right? This is why I say this is why we're different. Because more people, they ain't gonna spend time on this stuff because they're like, what's the relevance? It's very relevant. Because we're gonna be ready when we feel like things are getting to the point where we can track data and feel comfortable about it. Yeah, again, speak for I can't speak for everybody. I can say this though, but a lot of this stuff is going to be useful when you know the market is taking a turn for the better, when it actually really get to read out all the stagflation. When we read out inflation, recession, stagflation, all this will get flushed out of the system, we'll know. We'll know. We may not contain the time the exact bottom, but I guarantee we're going to be near the bottom. Right? I've been very adamant. Y'all know it ain't no secret. I've been very adamant. This is why I had not been added any of my loan business. That's just me though. Right? I'm different. Right? I like to look at y'all as different because y'all ain't nowhere near slow. Not even attach that even phrase to y'all name. Because again, you're doing the work that a lot of people skip over, and that's how they figure or where they go to get information. Again, there's no swipe, but some people again not going to spend time in this kind of reality, right? They just not. They say, hey, bro, here's a technical story. Here's a little fundamental news. Run with it, right? And then they'll be pulling from people like Jim Cramer, Kathy Wood. Oh no, buy Coinbase at Coinbase is going to 4 cents. No, buy Netflix here at $3.50. No, this is the buy right here. Why? Because Bill Ackman just bought it, right? No, right here is just a flaming buy. You buy Netflix here. Netflix is cheap here at $3.50. And a lot of people went right on in there, they're all in because Ackman bought Netflix at around what, 340, 320, somewhere around 340. And then the stock bounced back up, of course, near 400. And then after that, it crashed and went down to what? 200. Tired of winning yet?
Now that Bill Ackman so-called trade should have let people know that even the billionaires can't always move the market
where they want it to go. It's gonna go where it's supposed to go.
Facts. I've been a big proponent of that since day one. Y'all know that. Y'all been hanging out with your brother this long. Y'all know I've been the first one to tell you, man. And it was so much, it was just a part of my natural vernacular. Bro, Warren Buffett take L's. I used to tell people that all the time. They like, man, you tripping, man. No, Warren Buffett take L's, bro. I can go show you. Right? On Berkshire Hathaway, they P&L high. This was a bad investment. Look at how much he lost on the airlines alone. Right? Before he finally woke up, like, I can't, like ducks don't get it, right? Because they think everything in the market is such a cookie cutter value that they don't realize that there's a lot of different levels to this stuff, right? And hence we always say that, right? There's levels to this, right? It's important to realize that. Y'all with me there? Y'all tracking this, right? It's levels. And this right here is just another extension of those levels that, guess what? Whether you come back and visit us not, it's totally up to you. But right now, we're putting this out on the airways right now, right? So let's go forward. So again, the whole narrative about this being a soft landing that y'all were hearing for the last 2 months, scratch that, throw the ball up like a piece of paper, right? Throw it in your wastebasket, right? Throw it in the trash. Not happening, right? Y'all too smart for that. Don't let them people play on your intelligence. So again, this disinflation path is accompanied by a not so soft landing. The model predicts modestly negative negative, right? That didn't say positive. That says negative GDP growth in both 2022, right? 0.06, all right, 0.6, excuse me, right? Versus 0.9% value March, and 2023 at negative, this is negative, I should say negative 0.6, right? Versus the 0.9, right? Keep in mind, they were forecasting for 0.9 positive, but it's coming in negative, right? 0.6, right? Y'all could do the integer over under on that, right? That ain't, look, that ain't natural, right? That's a big decline, right? And from 2023, negative 0.05% versus 1.2%. They were forecasting about a 1.2% GDP value for 2023, guys. Given we can get back to work, get back to moving things, get back to China, everybody. And that was just probably on the low road. But again, we're talking about that's about the half. That's about, I would say, about a third of what typical each sitting president will get on an annual basis as far as the overall annual GDP is to be able to achieve at least a 3% or higher. That would be like you on your A game as a president. The only time we had those kind of numbers, we had slightly, I want to say maybe Obama may have hit it once, right? I want to say about once or twice, maybe. Clinton was really good because remember he was good with balancing the budget, right? Give him credit. But that's rare. You don't see a lot of presidents, they dream to have a 3% GDP on their resume. And they were forecasting only 1.2 by 2023. That's because they feel like, okay, it's a big boom, people going back to work, this, that, the third, we get it. Yeah, get excited. That should help. Production just going to be rampant because people trying to catch back up in life. So they're going to kind of feel more, sedentary. They're not going to be just changing jobs all over the place. They had this all stuff mapped out in their head while they was printing all this money, throwing it to Wall Street and not Main Street. And they act like now, all of a sudden that, okay, well, but this, see, but it's somebody else's fault. It's the supply chain fault. It's everybody else's fault except theirs. We know they're lying now. But they've been lying. We've been knew they lying. But again, they lying. They lie so bad that look, like I said, we talking about credibility, they have none. None. Right? Anyway, moving forward, right? So as you see here, let me take this off here. My bad. One second. Close this out here. Y'all follow along on the YouTube side, right? They over there probably, Brother Ramsey get it. What's going on, Miss Monica Lamb in the building? Peace, power, property, Miss Lamb in the building over there on the tube side. Right? We're gonna unwind this thing real quick, unpack this, and we're gonna come back and revisit it again too. Because there's no way I could do just one quick little run through this and not in the time allotted, because I got to get off here at some point. But I'm gonna come back alive. We're gonna go over this again. Nonetheless, right? So this disinflation path is accompanied by a not so soft landing. The model predicts modestly negative GDP growth in both 2022 and basis 2023, right? Based at negative 0.06 and negative 0.05 in respect to both years, 2022 and 2023, right? According to the model, the probability of a soft landing defined as what? 4-quarter GDP growth, right? That's that totality, right? Staying positive over the next 10 quarters is only about what? How much is that? They say the chance of we having a positive GDP. Anybody see that right there?
10%.
Say it with the chest over.
10%. Which is a joke.
They're projected at best 10%. 10% chance that they'll have a what? Positive GDP.
I think it's even lower, to be honest.
Right. You know, they do that. They just put an old even number. That's how they get you. I told them half a whole number to get you every time. Every time.
Exactly.
10%, guys.
If I took that snapshot of that the chart they had up there talking about 3.8%, 3.8 inflation. And stop.
Now you see where they pull that trash from, that PCE mess. Right? I saw that when you put it up there too. I was like, see, this is why we the money crack. This one right here. Got him. Right? They said got him. Right? Right? Forecast for inflation, right? Shout out to Over Chris bringing this knowledge, right? Bringing that data through, right? I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up, guys. These people just really think y'all like, all right, moving on, bro. We got it. It's late. All right. So it says what? Conversely, right? The chances of a hard landing is defined is what? Basically, what? The chance of a hard landing defined to include at least 1/4 in the next 10 in which 4-quarter GDP dips below what? Negative 1% as occurred during the what? 1990 recession, or about what? How much right there? Y'all see that right there?
80%.
Somebody say that with your chest. Say it with again. Say it with your chest.
80%, man. 80%.
80.
That's tough.
So anytime you read something that says what? It's gonna be bad, and then they say at a point where they misread the data and they were off, and now it's gonna only be what, less percent, 10%. Then they turn around and say, they say what? Conversely, right? You already know it's gonna be when they hit you with hit you with that conversely, upon further review, right? Flag on the play. Conversely, the chance of a hard landing, and I'll just skip through all the fluff, and just we're gonna annex all this stuff. We're gonna redact everything inside of that, right? Or just cross out and say what? Conversely, the chance of a hard landing are about what?
80%.
Boy, you are shaming yourself. I ain't lying, Junior. Come through.
Pull the rug off a bump under you, man.
You can't even make this stuff up, girl.
Couldn't make this stuff up.
Yeah, that's tough.
And Wall Street out there telling everybody, buy. They were telling people to buy SPY 460, SPY 470. Q's.
Yeah, by the dip game. That's the by the dip game.
Tough, boy.
And people looking at us crazy, like, bro, we ain't buying. I ain't buying, bro. No, not a nail, not look. Baby Potter, can we just call me employee? What about your employee? What about your employee? Well, we out here on the trap. Well, we ain't got no employee. We out here pimping. Ain't no employees, bruh. And people like they were telling y'all that the bottom was in months ago. Everybody kept, but the bottom is in. I'm like, bro, nope. Long denied. But who the smart ones now? Who winning, who losing now? All that good money on bad tires, Maypop tires.
Man, that's tough, man.
Maypop tires.
The straight Maypops, right? Straight worse than Firestone. Worse than Firestone.
Boy, 80%, these tires already popped. He's waiting for
You already
that.
know, but 80%, that's percentage of them too. 80% chance they gonna pop, but And that's same what they are too. That's the federal fund rate value right there in the whole rally.
Shit, you riding on rims right now.
On to
I'm
my
saying,
man.
bro. Sparks flying.
Man,
And then at the rim.
it's bad out here, boy. Ooh,
It
ooh.
ain't no 4 flats on a Cadillac.
Y'all so pessimistic though, man. Y'all pessimistic, man. But Tina, bro, there's no alternative. But I gotta buy. I just gotta buy because y'all still over a 5-year average. They tell me on the value of that at least I should have some level of equilibrium where at least I'll be breaking even. I have a chance of dollar cost average in this bill what share structure at some point when the market do go back up. At least I'll still have a value of what gain because I'm still what understanding of the Warren Buffett. These what you should not think about holding stock for 10 seconds if you don't hold for 10 years. So guess what? By that very route, I'm gonna buy now.
You're gonna be catching a falling knife, bro. Cutting your hands all up. Now you gotta go to the hospital.
Right? You couldn't make this stuff up. Like, bro, we ain't the smartest people out here. Granted. And I'm not this, I'm saying up against a lot of these quants, managers, and this, that, and third, we do damn well for a group of what, hard hitting, on the ground, building out our journey group of what individual. We do damn good, guys.
Facts.
Because again, we're gonna go in places where most people would not go, who are moving in this lane, and ain't no swipe at anybody. And this doesn't necessarily mean that we're gonna go out there to become the best investor because of this information too. But I tell you what, you will be at least. I should say you should have a very wide scope of data assessment skill that puts you at an advantage over that of the average person who just listening, waiting for some TV personnel to tell them when they should and should not buy. We talking about running your own book and managing your own book. This is what it entails to be able to run your own book.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta know where to go to get
decision.
it. Go ahead, Ob, I'm sorry.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I said it puts you in a position to make an informed decision. You're not just walking blind,
This is why we love Over African Emporium. He don't do no trade signals. He don't give you stocks. He teach you how to fish and get it on your own. That way you ain't.
Y'all know it's recyclable.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's recyclable. Y'all know how we roll over here, but Bunty all day. We straight peers at this. We straight peers at this. Right? Because the worst thing you can do, especially when it comes to it, because most people look at bravado and all this prestige that comes along with these people like a Buffett. And again, that's why people put in their time, but a lot of times people get caught up in, again, when we went over that with Japanification, right? This old window dressing, when we broke down that. Remember that we did that window guidance? That window guidance, which is the true saying, right? We looked it up, we pulled the data on it, window guidance. Well, y'all might want to go look that up. Essentially, that's what the marketplace does a lot of times in terms of how it keeps this whole ideal of prestidigitation going for retail dumb money. It keeps them on sleight of hand, right? So sleight of hands reality. Hey, watch this hand while we robbing you with this one here. That's how they keep a lot of these people asleep. Right. And they'll follow like these Looney Tunes, like Kramer and all them types like that. This loud mouth screaming. Like if this was really performance-based value where it was really no nonsense, a lot of people would be out of job. The same way we say about our government structure. If these people got paid for performance, majority of them be fired. The majority of them will be fired. Right? Not even up for debate. The fact that we are in performance-based industry as investors and traders, that says everything. Again, it's not the only means of income. That's why I said I open up saying what? Multiple streams of income, multiple lanes of opportunity, no all eggs in one basket theory. Throw that trash out the window. That business model or that model of thinking is broken. Go to school so you can get an education, so you can get a good job just over broke. That model broken, bro. It's just like we ain't going back to that ever. Because that was the case back in the day when it was irrelevant, 50s, 60s like that, where literally one person go to work and feed everybody in the house and send juggles off to college back then. Can you do that today in 2020?
Absolutely not.
They must need to go to the University of what? Right, Main Street somewhere. That's about the only university they'll be going to, all right?
Right.
Go out there and figure it out on your own, Junior. That's about it. Because I ain't look, bro. It's that bad. Let's get through this here so we can get off here, guys. So it says again, changes in the near-term forecast. Or no, again, let me go back to that. Again, just highlight that. Again, 80% chance of a hard landing. I just want to focus on that part there. 80% chance. 80% chance of a hard landing.
Mm.
It was weird though. It says what? Only 10% value of a what? Soft landing.
Mm.
Well, what the other 10%?
Yeah.
God dang it, bro.
Got bad
Last time
math.
I checked, where the other 10% at then?
Got bad math, bro.
But that must be that what? That Shambhala, Humbala. That's the other 10%. No swipe, no disrespect, nobody out there. That must be the other 10%, boy. Call his name, boy. G. Well, look here, bro. I'm just saying, man. Don't y'all come for me. I'm just cutting up a little bit. I'm just saying,
You
what
got
else?
that Hail Mary, brother.
Right. Like last time I checked, but look, that's 90%. What the other 10? I'm just asking for a friend. What the other 10% at? Where that, Brandon? You got it somewhere hiding. You are Yoda, brother Rich guy hiding it. Y'all hiding it.
Yeah, I wish.
Right? Where the other 10% at? Right. So again, let's get through it real quick. So changes in the near-term forecast for GDP growth. And again, that core PCE again, this is the thing that the Feds uses, guys, to determine all their policy. And we know this is one of the most backwardated, lagging indicators of all of them. And it's the most skewed and cooked data that they can use to determine whether or not we're in what trouble or not. It's the worst. This one right here. So every time you hear that PCE, which is it comes out next month, next week, literally, and GDP come out next week. Now y'all see how timely it is to have this discussion today.
Ooh.
Right? Y'all already know right here. If they say right here, right here, right? Right here. Current events matter. And being current in a lot of ways matter too. And all you see that the market doing right now is kind of trying to get off them lows and fight high as it can get up until it before it run into that data. As we always know, the market love climb all worry, even when it's beyond the worry at this point. It's straight panic. But yet the market's still gonna do what it's gonna do. And all we're doing is saying, okay, these are the levels that we need to be operating underneath. This is the information that's out there on the economic side of things. This is how you need to be planning in or around this so you could be comfortable and being able to maneuver properly.
Mm-hmm.
By using this, right? This, right? You got to think. You got to be smart, right? Who that Tiffany had? You got to be smart. You got to be smart. Right? You got to be smart. You don't have to go to MIT, Harvard, Yale, internet to get this, guys. You don't. All right. Anyway, let's go for it. So it says again, changes in the near-term forecast of GDP growth and core PCE inflation relative to March reflect two factors, right? The first is the continuation of the cost push shocks that have hit the economy since early 2021. Notice that?
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the two types of inflation, right? There's what?
Cost push and supply pull.
Close. You got it right. But you got the last part pull, but it's the first one. If it's not supply, it is
demand pull.
Demand pull. Those are two types of inflation. Again, no rocket science. Y'all know we go with stuff like there's demand pull, right? And then there's what?
Cost push.
Cost push, right? We're going, boy, you talking about economics class, boy. They ain't teaching us here at UCLA, Berkeley, and all that stuff, boy. Look, but they ain't teaching us. Look, boy, we getting this stuff straight out the shade tree mechanic style, boy. We straight got a cigarette, got an ass about that long on it with a monkey wrench in his hand and a cell phone in the other. Look at him. Yeah, look at here, Rufus. Bruh.
Yeah, man.
But y'all tough, boy. Y'all look at y'all gonna get this work, right? They ain't ready for it. So look at him. So because we had the discussion about maybe 3 or 4 sessions ago when I went over this with you guys, the types, right? Cost push, demand pull, and we're like, well, what's kind of inflation we in right now? Now here's where it gets interesting because remember I told you we was in demand pull at this point, right? Notice it said the first is a continuation of the what? Cost push shocks that have hit the economy since what? Early 2021. At this point, it has morphed into what? Demand pull. Why? Because we have too many dollars to feel good. Unemployment value is somewhat not what? Equating that of the wage earning value that you need to balance out that level of what? Stimuli that's in the economy to account for all that M2, M1 money supply. So by value of that, you cause inflation. Look, we already know how this stuff goes, right? I'm not gonna have to go deep into a sermon on that, but this is the extent of knowing the importance of this and how you'll know whether or not we on the back end of that or we coming out of that. This demand pool is ratchet. Why? Because people are still willing to pay, which they are forced to at this point. They being what? It's like a draconian law. They like the jab mandate, right? It was draconian, right? Force you to, or you can't feed yourself.
You to pay them prices. Yeah.
If you don't get the jab, you can't come to work. Ain't that funny that fast forward when they had that draconian measure? What industry did they just hit recently? So much so that it crippled that whole industry. How many cancellations did we just have over the past weekend?
Oh, airlines. Yeah. Airlines got, oh man, airlines was tough. Oh my God. Yeah, people sleeping in the airports, cancellation, delays.
The whole entire week was stuck at the airport and they went to go somewhere for the weekend and they got stuck at the airport.
Yeah. None of the airlines just did what? They had to cancel all Newark flights.
They got to cut certain airlines off the route. It's that bad now. Think about that.
Because of the jab.
Draconian laws.
They just letting anybody fly a plane now. The pilots don't want to do it.
Well, they going straight to what they call temp agency. Y'all got anybody can fly a plane?
Yeah.
Look, bro, I change the gas and what up? That you good enough. Here's your wings. Let's go. Let's go. Right? We can pay you time and a half.
That's tough, boy.
Boy, y'all ought to be ashamed of y'all self. Y'all out here exposing these folks.
I'd be like Snoop. I got my wings when I got out.
Right? Right? That's why I say, guys, we're going to be flying at 30,000 feet and we're going to be looking down. Right? We're not going to be down here at this base effect looking up. That's pie in the sky. That I'll leave that alone. Yeah. So the first is a continuation of the cost push shocks that have hit the economy since early 2021. We were talking about this stuff way back then. It ain't even a secret, man. We've been on top of this stuff, man. All right. Resulting in a higher projection for inflation and a somewhat lower projection for output of growth. Right? The second factor is tighter monetary policy. In 2022 and 2023, with the federal funds rate following a much steeper path over the next year and a half than the one projected in back in March, right? Clearly, they were way off. Clearly, this expected path for policy rate is determined by inversion averaging inflation targeting AIT, right? AIT, right? Right. That reminds me of military, right? Anyway, right? Augmented with anticipated policy shocks and informed by expectation from the survey of the primary dealers, right? We talked about the SPD earlier, right? A little bit in passing up here, dealing with that. Y'all can come back and pull this up and see what the SPD really details. Come back and pull it up, right? Look it up, right? As described above, right? This tighter policy path compared to March is a drag on real activity over the next few quarters. They were at the beginning of the year telling you we should have all this stuff mapped out by Q2, Q3 of the 2022.
God,
they were telling y'all this stuff would be cleaned up by the back end of the year. And it's just getting started at the middle of the year. Bruh.
Hey.
Could make this stuff up. I'm not making this stuff up. But let me remove this stuff all. I'm sorry. I know it's in the way a little bit. It says but hold up. Let me clear. but is what? But it has a limited effect on the projected course of inflation due to the flatness of the model's estimated what? Phillips curve. Now, y'all know that Phillips curve, boy, that they've been working with.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it might be a Phillips screwdriver, but they ain't sure ain't no dang old natural Phillips. Boy, the way that they must have been trying to cook them books and get that Phillips curve working in their favor. Bruh. Matter of fact, let me throw that in the back chat. Right? Let me throw that in the back chat over here on the book side of things too. Or it's a book side, but but up on the YouTube. Y'all can go pull that up. That Brookings Institute. Boy. I'm just saying. Matter of fact, let me go throw that in the group too real quick. 1 second, guys. 1 second. Bear with me. Right? Y'all guys already know what it is. Where we at here? But I have to definitely make sure that we on point because yeah. Y'all already know, as they say, the trick bag is already booked. They done pulled it out. They're gonna try it, right? But look, y'all on top of it. So again, it says what? The real federal funds rate implied by these forecasts quickly approaches the natural rate of interest, right? So natural rate of interest is based upon what? Fund market yields, right? In respect to commodity prices, the leveling of the natural market being able to what? Again, weed out bad actors, right? As to say, sink or swim, right? Rates and policy and numbers being determined by what? Commerce, naturally, as it's supposed to be, right? That's why I say, when they artificially suppress what? The bond market or yield or the dollar, that's going to cause a what? A massive what? Blockage. And then you can have what they call a pressure cooker effect, when all of a sudden you can't keep that thing what? Held down for so long, and then it what? Just that's what you're seeing happening right now. And why aren't you acting so surprised all of a sudden? I'm appalled that this is happening. We would just thought this was this is appalling. I just could know this is just like, boy, stop. Right? That's exactly how we look at them. Like, y'all need to stop. And just how phony they are. Right? It says what? So the real federal funds rate applied by the forecast quickly approaches what? The natural rate of what? Interest, which is around about what? 1%, right? Reaching it in 2023 and modestly overshooting it for the rest of the forecast horizon, partly reflecting, the tighter path of what? Policy, right? Them so-called tightening all this stuff. The output gap turns negative in the medium term, right? Which is somewhere around, now back in the year, declining from 0% at the end of 2022, right? To what? Negative 1.7% in what? 2023. And potentially what? Negative 2.6% in when?
2024. Tighter path of policy.
Y'all see it right here? That little projection right there. Again, they will pee on y'all and tell y'all that it's
delusional, man. That's crazy. They come up with these numbers, man. Yeah, well, core PCE inflation just go down, just keep going down, and GDP growth go up. But ain't crazy, man. They just don't lie like this, man.
Yeah, but when my cooking the books goes wrong, right? When cooking the books goes wrong,
man, they something else. Well, they need to stop this.
it just serves us like this, like as they say, the saying goes, you couldn't make this stuff up, guys. Couldn't make this. And that's why I said the relevancy of this moment is really good, because again, next week we got PCE and GDP. The Federal Reserve Board of Atlanta came out, listen, a week ago and purposely leaked their forecast for GDP. They was expecting at least a percentage, right? Somewhere inside of on the positive side of the integers, right? For growth. It turned out it's on the negative side of the integers. This negative 0.06. They had forecasted 0.9, positive 0.9, and they had to revise it for negative basically negative 0.6. They had to come right out and leak it. It's that bad. All right, so let me keep going because I'll be having these little moments, right? With them nerd moments. So, guys, y'all already know, right? So, as you see, Chris posted this early, guys, just showing you, the extent of how, the output of growth and what we look like going into 2024. Now, keep in mind, guys. Yeah, look, yeah. Bro, when they did all that print, y'all see exactly right here? Forecast for output of growth. Remember I told y'all, we talked about this before, ain't nothing new. What is the base effect? Does somebody give me a layman term definition of what they call, when you hear the word or hear the phrase base effect, what does that mean to you guys? Anybody? Base effect. What does base effect mean to you all, guys?
Just like the cause.
Right. Oh, in this case, when we're talking about actually data point, right? Like a pie chart, bar graphs, whatever. When you say a base effect or some kind of form of statistics, right? The base effect will be basically what? Somewhat of a what? Ground level,
Bottom
right?
line.
Right, the bottom line, right? As we know, in terms of when you have destabilization of any kind of form of what? Homogeneous, growth or equilibrium of growth or path of what? Fluidity. And all of a sudden, you get hit with a black swan event. Everything gets turned upside of its head. You find the bottom, right? Fortunately, right? It ain't just inevitable what? Bleeding, free falling, right? Once you find that bottom and begin to make your what? Ascent back, what? Back up to even equilibrium, right? We're not even talking about beyond that, but just equilibrium alone. Everything looks bigger from what? Somebody complete that sentence. Everything looks bigger from what?
From the bottom?
From the bottom up. Hence the what? Right? Hence the base effect. You will have artificial value of growth that looks like what? Large in life, because everything looks bigger from what? The bottom. So that means it's a what? It's skewed data, right? It's skewed because it's not what? It's not organic, right? It's not. Think about that. It's not, right?
Definitely not organic.
Not rocket science. The fact that we went from -8 GDP all the way up to -12 in basic and under 1 year. Y'all explain to me what factory opened up that was rusty in Philadelphia? What factories came up online in y'all neighborhood that y'all see, that y'all miss? Show me all these farmers that were out there on the ready with the plow, the pig, the cow, the John Deere tractor, plowing, the growing all this crop. Find me everybody that went to work, even children that was look, 5 years old, went to work, not even school, went straight to work and produced this level of what? GDP growth that we never experienced ever in the history of America. Somebody please find me that.
Total dudes on
Like, so, and see, this is how they trick people, how they get people all in their little, feelings, because they don't understand how this stuff works. As soon as them prints came out, because we know the Fed started doing what? We know what caused it, right? Because it ain't up for debate. What caused it? Stimulus. The printing press, right? Food is straight artificial. General public got them data points and said, oh, we must be doing really good. Not only did we get back all our losses we got from COVID, but we exceeded and went up there, had a 12 GDP. Bro, you at the house. Where that growth coming from? You in the middle of the pandemic, you at the house on quarantine and couldn't even go outside. Where that growth coming from? Somebody help me here. Where's it coming from?
Sam.
Right.
Sam gave him that check. That happened.
Bro, where's this growth coming from? Where's the production coming from? If you at the house and can't go to work. So now we supposed to be under the tooth fairy syndrome all over again.
Corporations take welfare too. Them payments was like welfare.
Man,
You
they
know?
was even, they was,
Yeah,
they was,
they eating.
you talking about, whew. Them joker profit over what? Over $1 trillion+ off that swing of stimulus. And it's, man, that's another conversation. We're going to revisit that one too. But I'll be here all night, but I can't. Gosh, man, I know I am. This stuff get going, man, but y'all get it. Look here. See, everything looks bigger from the ground up. The base effect is very what? Skewed. And if you're not initiated and understand that, you'll look at numbers and say, when you hear that stuff even come across the airwaves, and you're like, oh man, we had this kind of level of growth. This is great. We're great. And you'll have a false sense of reality that what? The economy is strong. You'll start spending as if this is what? Great, because there's a lot of surplus and excess out there that you can what? Benefit from and going back to work. And see, it leaves a false sense of security in the general public. And a lot of the general public is not financially equipped. I'm not even saying financially literate, but that's what it really is. They're not necessarily financially equipped to know how to really read the true organic tea leaves, because the government's not going out there explaining it to y'all like that. They're not. They're sitting up this window dressing still, window guiding still. It's that bad. Like they lie so profusely that to the point where it's like you expect it just to be like it's yeah. Anyway, let's go forward. So again, their forecasts are so you couldn't make this stuff up. Right? You could not make this stuff up. And just hearing Jerome Powell speak at the Senate hearing, and the House hearing today, then the Senate hearing the day before that, is always like business as usual, right? Even though he's trying to go out of his way to sound hawkish as he possibly can, he knows now that he has to do everything in his power, because as much as Biden is trying to set Powell take the fall for this, for the midterm, Powell is starting to realize that now. Republicans are on it's in his ear much as possible. Don't listen to him. Listen, I sat there watched the hearing today. Man, I sat there watched how the Republicans literally trying to force feed Jerome Powell, talking points like, look, bro, when this stuff hit the fan, you best realize that you best be on very, very bipartisan ground level. Because if you even said some things back in the past that 100% made you in alignment with the Biden agenda, and the way that you and Janet Yellen were cheerleading for more stimulus at a time when we didn't need it, if this stuff hits the fan, you're going to be the fall guy for them. You might want to go back and redact those statements. I saw a Senate tell Jerome Powell that today. And if you wasn't smart enough to catch that, it would have went over most people's head. And Jerome Powell was so stumped, and he was like trying to get it, but he didn't get it. Then the guy was like, okay. And then it probably at some point it might have hit him, then he was like, and he went to write him down. Then I guess he looked back behind one of his little assistant back there. Like, I was like, boy, this is bad. This is pathetic, right? These people, they so ratchet and raunchy. It's just not even funny. I was just sitting there like, man, did that just happen? I'm like, it just happened. It just happened, right? This just happened, right? But this is the extent of how they are. They desperate now. They desperate, right? When he was doing the bidding to Trump, look, Republicans didn't have what? No qualms with him. And I'm saying that after he started what? Lowering rates, right? Before that, they were all in his grill, right? Because Trump was all on Trump power back. Why are we sitting up here at these high interest rates? Everybody got dang near negative interest rate, and you sitting there trying to raise rate. Him and Powell literally fighting back and forth. It was that bad. Trump was even thinking about firing him. Then he found out he couldn't fire him because Trump don't understand government like that, right? He thought he could fire him. Thought it was on the printers or something. He's like, no, it's an act of Congress and all that. Like, God, I'm stuck with him then. And then they went to kind of chipping away at his forcibly until they got to the point where they made him cut rates. Couldn't make this stuff up. But I was like, this is a funny mess here, boy. I've just been laughing my behind off. Right? So again, just looking at this, guys, these real natural interest rate values, and I just, guys, this stuff is just crazy in terms of just how they, again, have gotten us to a point now where knowing that the genie can't go back in the bottom in terms of inflation, knowing that they actually don't have tools that they said that they had to fight inflation, Now it's up to what, either government or Main Street to try to somewhat bail them out. That's the only thing they got at their disposal at this point. That's it. I mean, they so up the creep that the powder is not even funny. But we already had forecast a lot of this stuff. We was already forewarning this stuff. And a lot of people again was like, y'all pessimistic, or you pessimistic, or that don't seem to make. No, bro, I need to be buying. I'm buying Apple here at 180. I'm buying Netflix here at 600-700, bro. You wrong, bro. I'm buying Facebook here near 300 plus. You wrong, bro. I trust Jerome Powell, bro. We trust Jerome Powell. We trust Jay Powell. Jay Powell got this, bro. You wrong, bro.
It's crazy. Yeah, you crazy for that.
Boy, if they say if it was a fifth, we all be drunk. Boy, if they can go back and get them dollars now. Where them dollars? Where them dollars at? See, it's hindsight, but foresight is even better. See, that's why moments like this exist, sessions like this exist, time, interest, value like this exists. There's no permanent there's only permanent interest. Our interests are aligning, and we're just trying to figure out how we can best use this time to get good information that we can work with going forward. So when we get ready to make our 4D chess move, guess what? We ready. At least to the point where we can at least we can walk through our theory into our thesis, into our executive actions that come after that. Research methodology. Source up or what? How the saying go? Source up or what?
Shut up.
See, sources here. Right? Straight sources. We're not over here just beating the drum saying, this ain't the Facebook cheerleading, YouTube website, this ain't the AMC, just keep lying to the X, type of YouTube website, this ain't just the Bitcoin, Coke fan following channel. See, we don't do none of that stuff over here. Not gonna do it. Hence, that's what makes us probably unpopular for us, especially for us agos. We're not sitting there beating the drum that everybody want to hear, the echo chamber stuff. We good with our little 7, 8, 10, 20, 30 people that may come through here on a live, whatever. Look, we're not trying to, this is not a congeniality contest. This is about us being able to take this information, build from it, and hopefully have a positive effect on others who may not necessarily be completely initiated yet, and share that so we can have a better think tank and organization where everybody can benefit from the information naturally. That's the goal, right? That's the goal. All right. So again, it just goes to show you the extent of this stuff is just like, bro, right? It's that bad. See it? This is a little quant team that they got, right? As you see, is an economic advisor for what? For macroeconomics, monetary studies, and Federal Reserve Bank, what? Federal Reserve Bank of New York Research Statistics Group. This is their people.
Yep.
Their people. Senior research analyst in the bank's Research Statistics Group. Senior research analyst in the bank Research Statistics Group. Senior research analyst in the bank's Research Statistics Group. Is an economic research advisor in macroeconomic monetary policy bank's Research Statistics Group. I bet you we went deep into these people there. Harvard, Yale, all that stuff like that. All that kind of, whatever, MIT possible, who knows, whatever. They're people. They're people.
It's one of theirs.
Right, so
simple website.
That's like when Bullock come out and tell the truth about the Federal Reserve, and then Powell say, that each governor has their own right to have their own opinion, but collectively we all come together as a group. We still have a different. Hey, bro, you want the man, but he getting the same information that you pulling from too. So how is it that y'all that far further apart? If everything that you have in your model tells y'all that this is the data that y'all have within the models that y'all use, is he reading it wrong and you're not reading it right?
Supposed to be unified.
Like they pulling from the same data. Like
They got the same information in front of them. How y'all come up with two different synopses?
As if the Federal Reserve of Atlanta, a lot of their quant managers and people like that, statisticians or whomever, logisticians and all that, are not sourcing information and sharing information with these guys over here in New York. As if they're not doing that with the Philly Fed and their crew, and the Minnesota and the California, and because these people already been vetted. They're not going to Jim Cramer, hey, bro, Jimmy Chill, give me your best read on the market. Bruh. Anyway, yeah, about this. Next week, PCE GDP. We're going to have to revisit this again before it comes out. I'm sure we're having a live stream. I plan to. It's late. I know I'm already, but we got to go over it again. That's why I shared it with everybody. I said, do your little research, do your little scout work and homework. Go through this, pull out everything that looks, that stands out to you. And then when we meet up, let's expound on it. Of course, Chris posted in the back chat those models, right? Pull the models here, right? Forecast output, GDP growth there. Very important. Very important. Being able to connect those dots, priceless. Because again, if they're going to tell you that we're having that level of consensual growth or consecutive if you want to call it that, right? Consecutive growth or negative growth or no growth, but they telling you that a soft landing was, it's going to be achieved and it's not this and this, that, the third. Everything they're saying in front of the public and these little forums have been totally window guidance and window dressing. The real data says 100% opposite. And it's right on their website. This is them leaking it to, again, those people who initiated, who would come to this site to pull this up and look at this and be like, oh, okay. Okay. All right. Yep, gotcha. Yep. Bookmark that. Yep. Yep. Okay. And then they come back in front of the airways like, yeah, the market is still, cheap right here, guys. Bye. You just finna buy their bags. You finna buy Tom Lee bags, Jamie Dimon bags. You finna buy everybody bags. So it's basically gonna happen. You're gonna bail them out their busted positions. Why they plan for this data to unwind itself to a point where we can flush out all the stuff that we've been talking about, flush out inflation, flush out recession, flush out, stagflation, flush out, low employment, flush out supply chain. We flush out all that stuff, and then the market takes that big fry pan bottom and start right? Blue sky breakouts. That's what we're planning for. That's what we're planning for. Make sense? So we don't have to play the game of being premature. You can, that's your choice. Everybody has their own right to spend their money how they want. Granted, that's not what we're doing here, telling that you should and that you should not. We're saying, based upon the data that we got coming out, as information comes, we'll adjust as necessary. I have no qualms about why I'm not spending good money on none of the stocks I have in my growth portfolio stuff. None. I'm just doing like everybody. I'm hedging and trading. All the other stuff, I took profit somewhat near the tops of some of them things, at least a good portion of it, and now I'm just letting it letting it breathe. Let it thaw out, bro. Let it thaw out. Let it breathe. We will be ready when it's time to go. Be all what they call all hands on deck again. We'll be ready. We'll be ready. I hate to speak from certainties, but I know we'll be a higher probability. We'll be more. I should say that we'll be more prepared. Just keep it simple. We'll be more prepared than most people who are, who do this stuff, religiously. Apparently, in their mind, at a high level, because again, those were the people who just been trying to buy the market or catch the proverbial dip all the way down from 480, and they've been catching falling knives. And for the most part, the level of capital that we've been deploying and however we deploy it, it's been very indiscriminate. It's based upon, again, what we have willing to lose, if that's the case, but it's not in terms of at the degree where we know that the market is obviously at at a somewhat of a decent read that the bottom is very near. They've been screaming that junk for over at least minimum 6 months, somewhere around there. But not even 6 months, excuse me. Well, yeah, close to that, about 5-6 months. We hit all-time high, early, but literally the first weekend, January, somewhere around there. Here it is, 6 months in? Could make this stuff up. It's been down here ever since. And they've been trying to buy it on the way down ever since. And falling knife, after falling knife, they've been catching them. Market's cheap, bro. Market's cheap, bro. I'm like, knock yourself out. Get drunk. Right? Get drunk, bro. Knock yourself out. Right. But as far as my mentality, I know this don't nope, not gonna happen. But anyway, but y'all get it, guys. So the extent of this is like everything in a lot of ways, because again, it's kind of hidden in plain sight. And we know typically that's how they communicate in a lot of ways. In Yendo, publications off the beaten path, places where the average person does not come to even source information when it comes to this kind of stuff. It's hidden in plain sight. And we're just reluctant to kind of go in them places. That's what on average, most people would not, maybe not traverse. And so at least we can say we're pulling from what? Primary sources. Let's go, Uncle Kit. A well-organized lie defeats a disorganized truth every time. Somebody fill that in for me. Where we at, Uncle Kit? Where my Uncle Kit people at in the building? Well, I know y'all done forgot the saying already. Y'all done forgot the Uncle Kit. A well-organized lie defeats a disorganized truth every time. Ooh, wee. I'm gonna end it on that note right there. Guys, y'all know what it is. As they say, study to show yourself approved, whatever. Our reality is based upon we're gonna follow this data and we're gonna stay keen to knowing where to go, how to go, and in terms of how to use it. That's what this is all about, right? That's exactly what this is about, right? That's exactly what this is about, right? So, with that being said, guys, we're gonna come back and revisit this again. But I think it was very fitting that we have this conversation now, because that data is coming out next week, PCE and GDP. Again, the Atlanta Feds already came out and leaked the forecast GDP already for right? For next month, right? And that wasn't by mistake. The same way they've been leaking all this data, all of a sudden they just been leaking information. They've been leaking the PCE. The PPI, they've been leaking the CPI. All of a sudden they started to leak all this information all of a sudden. Like no one getting in trouble for to go in jail or get reprimanded or fired too. Like all of a sudden, Supreme Court leaked information on the whole idea of overturning Roe versus Wade. Like, and what planet did do that happen on at a point where they act like, I don't know what's going on right now, but I know that this is good. We need to see all the cracks in the system that we know that was there anyway, and it need to be on full display. I'm loving it. Like McDonald's, I'm loving it. Again, as the saying goes, you want to see Joker panic, mess with their money, and they panicking. And when people panic, they miscalculate, they get sloppy, they do a lot of off the beaten cuff things that they typically wasn't doing. They was in their right thinking mind. This is the best time to be patient, still, and just observe. This is the best time. Capitalize off their frailties, their fragility, and then you be like, okay, I got it. Their dysfunction is the blueprint for your catapult. Mark them words, guys. Y'all already know what it is. It's going to require you being uncomfortable. When I say uncomfortable, meaning going into places that you typically wouldn't necessarily go to, and not necessarily feeling like you have to get a return on that time invested in that right away. This is a patience game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You know as well as I know, this information is it's money. Essentially, it's money. It's money. Knowing what to do with it, priceless. Straight priceless. That's why it matters. And that's why, again, and this not necessarily make us, nowhere near the level that some of these guys who sit around and do this stuff all day, every day. We're just in our lane and we're building and we're growing as necessary, unpacking it, making it stuff layman as possible. Eventually, the more and more we uncover it, the more and more we, dig, the more fluid it's going to become. That's what it's all about. It's about regimen. That's one of my favorite sayings. I say, what? Repetition is what? Repertoire. Repetition is definitely repertoire. You got to get in the habit of doing this. You got to get excited about the importance of it. Whether you can get a return on your investment right now, or if it's going to have to require you wait 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever. Look, that's what we're here for. All right. So with that note, guys, I'm going to end on that. All right, it's been a long, long day for me. Again, I came straight off the road. I'll tell you it was so bad, but I was rushing in the garage. I barely even got my garage door down. But I came right in my little office there. But I was there. Straight trying to get online. Look, online, but we got to get this in. All right. We got to get this in. All right. But we're going to come back again, revisit it. Thank y'all again for your patience. Thank you for, again, your attendance as always. Thank you for the Ubuntu, the camaraderie that what we're trying to do here. Thank you for the think tank value that we provide. Thank you for the correspondence, right? It's a workshop environment value for that. Anybody that participates and watches on the YouTube, everybody that came through on that side as well. Thank you all. Again, this is our Thursday training session. So we're definitely, happy to have you guys input to, even though we kind of focus, trying to get through our spiel, our narrative value, what we're trying to put out, right? Based upon open source information, primary sources, right? It's not a talking point. It's not an echo chamber. It's just based upon what the information is, right? Simple as that. We thank you guys for that, that tentative value for that too, right? For being, here with us. All right. So with that being said, guys, I ain't got anything else. I don't know what to do, guys. Y'all got anything before we get out here? Over Chris, over Brandon, over Rich, over Sean, over Jeremy, brother Yoda.
Like always, man, we appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Appreciate you.
I appreciate you guys. You already know what it is. I'm Bantu, 100%.
Yeah, appreciate you, over. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody.
I'm Bantu family.
Bantu family, appreciate you guys. You already know it. All right. Again, everybody on the YouTube side, we appreciate you guys as well. So we had Oprah Rams over there getting it in. So Miss Monica, right? Miss Monica Lamb, right? She's, crazy busy still right now. I know scheduling. Thank her as well. Thank you, Oprah Divine, that was in as well. Oprah Caesar came through as well. Brother Rashu, we see you in the building. Brother Brian Schwartz came through, right? See you as well. Missy Rona, thank you for coming through this as well. Missy Rona Z in the building. Shout out to her as well. Right. Anybody that may have listened in. All right. We appreciate you guys as well. And we like you for your, like, share, subscribe, value, and this, share it. Right. Had that conversation with people who are out there, maybe kind of like, this might not be their topic of discussion in terms of how they look at the market, but hey, it's worth discussing, right? Get those critical conversations going, right? So you can evoke, good train of thought and get some really good data to come out of that moment of think tank, right? All right, so we appreciate you guys all. And again, it's late. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We got one more day to close out this market, right, for tomorrow. And we'll see what's going to hold. Right now, the future market is pumping right now. I'm sitting there watching Bloomberg up. So China pumping, Nikkei was up earlier. So, they still pumping the Asian market a little bit. The market's kind of, caught. Oh, really quick. I forgot. It don't really matter, but, even though we're on the way out the door here. Right. But, whoa, where's, okay, let me just run over here and do it this way. Okay, yep. Yep. All right. So really quick here. Again, nothing that we haven't already, I keep saying that. It seems like a broken record on. Nothing that we haven't already planned for, right? As you see, the dollar sign right here was, me marking a short-term proverbial bottom. Ever since then, of course, playing off that bottom has been going as far as, getting that direction of buy in play, right? We understand what's going on here. This is kind of what? It's that what proverbial staycation, right? It's that stay of execution. If you've been watching this market, again, especially on the daily or hourly, monthly, whatever you use on the SP 500, which is the ultimate, market sentiment indicator, in terms of what it, it entails. We just playing the proverbial game of what? Lower highs, guys. Ain't nothing changed. Nothing has changed. But that's why we say until what? Something changes. What? We stick to the script, right? And since we've been following this market all the way down from the highs up here, nothing has changed. Lower high, right? Lower high, right? Basically equilibrium at that point right there, even the line that's straight. Y'all get it, right? Lower high here, lower high here, lower high here at the 416 level. And now we're building what? Potential new one. If they can't turn this market and get it back up towards that 416, especially going into the earnings cycle that we got coming up, which is going to be very revealing. When you already got coming out, what, leaking there, what, guidance in advance, letting people go in advance. They already tell you from that, like people like Target, all this stuff they've been, giving forward guidance early. That's not by accident. They forecasting and getting y'all ready to know that what, it's going to be an ugly earnings cycle coming up. On top again, all the other what headwind risk that we know that's already out there. Weirdly so, we got a big earnings coming out actually next week, right? What they call some of the last of the dying breed coming out this last quarter. We got Nike next week. That's going to be a really interesting one. Because I've been seeing a lot of fund managers been buying Nike up lately, right? Ahead of earnings. Because they just so convinced that what? Nike just too cheap here, just too cheap. There's no way Nike should be this cheap. I just got to buy it. Hey, Nike's at 5. But yeah, again, like anything, the macro environment is still shady for everybody. But that's one going to be very revealing. So keep your eye on Nike next week. But nonetheless, the patterns of the market right now on the technical level, until something changes, we still what? In a proverbial what? Downtrend. Still in a bear market. You got gaps that need to get, potentially what? Potentially filled. If they do, when they do, whatever, we're just playing up at around them or against them. Nonetheless, they're there. Marquee places to play. If you find strength, you got places to shoot for, places to plan for, right? No harm, no foul in that, but you need strength. You need, consistency of that. It's a very volatile market, so be conscious of that as well. Don't just jump out the window. Be very calculative, and let the chips fall based upon, the data that's provided, not so much a feeling or a whim. Let it be based upon what you can chart and also fundamentally assess. And after that, it is what it is. But ultimately, lower highs on deck still, ain't nothing changed. We still in that downtrend. We're still in the proverbial downtrend, right? So all that, the bottom is in right here at 410. All that junk they were talking about, the bottom was in at 420. And then we went from 420 all the way down to 360 we went all the way down to 360, 362. Yeah, about that bottom is in stuff. Where them people at right now that were calling for the bottom? Crickets. When we already planned for this. Look, all right, let me go, man. I gotta go. Y'all have a good evening, good night. We'll be back at this thing again. As soon as we get free time, we keep unpacking this stuff, right? I enjoy you all. You guys, I wish you guys the best. Your family members, all this Thursday. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay wealthy. Let's get it. I'll see y'all in the next one, guys.
Profit over.
Peace, everybody. Peace, family.
All right, peace, man.
Peace, everybody. Guys.